Hi everybody, Mike Reese here. Welcome back to another thing of Martial Chat. I was gone. I was going to do one every day, but I ended up having a special weekend of going with my son to the Sci-Fi Expo and Comic-Con and all that stuff. And hang out there with him, which is the first time that we've both been able to do something like that. And that was actually pretty fun. I've never been to anything like that, so it was interesting, to say the least. And then I was really cool was I was able to hang out with a man named Kyle Stockton, and he has a school of, it's American Ninjutsu, which is under Robert Bussey here in Arlington, Texas, and he was out there for the last couple days, and he was even talking about how Peter Weller, the original RoboCop, was hanging out and went over by their booth and hung out for a bit and was checking things out. So that's kind of cool. But Kyle was really cool, and I talked to him a little bit about Robert Bussey and how, because he's actually knows him and has hung out with him and stuff like that. And but he's funny because I hear so much of the same things that he says that I say about Frank. So it's pretty amazing how sometimes it's funny how many of these guys who are called frauds, they actually just have a tremendous amount of skill, and their students have a higher skill level than other students. And it's because of the way they train and how they teach. So I think that was really pretty amazing to sit there and talk to him like that and hear that. So, but today I've got actually a couple of different things. I just wanted to give a shout to Kyle and American Ninjutsu, which I'm going to leave their link below. I'm going to hopefully be able to get there and talk to him about that. Be able to talk to him face to face. Hopefully I'll be able to get an actual recorded thing of me and him face to face talking about it. That'd be kind of cool. So we'll see. But I had a couple of people give me some topics that they wanted to talk about a little bit, and I thought it was kind of interesting because I had this one that said, do one about backyard training versus dojo training. Well, the pros and the versus kind of a thing, Well, and I wrote it down a little bit. I'm going to try to get into a few of these. So backyard training versus dojo training. Here's a big one for backyard training versus dojo training. Backyard training, that's kind of a training that you want to train. It has nothing to do with you're paying to train. You are going and you're setting yourself in motion. This is I'm going to go do this, and I just want to train. So you want to train. And then there's the ones that are paying to train. Now, I'm not saying that there's people in a dojo that don't want to train, but I can guarantee those guys would go to a backyard session because they want to train. You know what I mean? So there's that difference. But there are some people who are just there to pay for their dues. Here, I'm going to pay my dues. My kid's going to go in here and do their thing. Or I'm going to pay my dues. I'm just here to get in shape. Rounds of shape. That kind of a thing. But the difference is really honestly, some people, they're paying to train, and people are going to the backyard session. If you're going to a backyard training session, it's because you want to train. It's no longer well, I have to, I paid my dues for the month, man, I don't want to pay $100 for nothing. It's more of I want to, I'm going, dude, I'm just going to do it. So it's more of want and, I guess, obligation because you've paid. So there's two, in my opinion. Those are two that I think are in there. And trust me, I want you guys to comment too and kind of maybe give you your variation, maybe your ideas of backyard training versus dojo training, kind of see what you guys think of too. So I'm looking forward to those comments. Backyard training, I don't know, this can be a pro and a con at the same time, but there's a lack of safety equipment a lot of times for backyard training, and safety equipment's pretty much in abundance for a dojo because you have to. If you want to open up a school, you need to have safety equipment, or else they're not going to let you open up a school. Okay, depending on where you live. But you need to have something if you're going to have any students at all, if you're opening up a school. But if you're in a backyard session, again, goes to the want to. You want to train. You don't care if you take spills onto the grass or you're taking hits onto the floor. You don't want to, but hey, I will do the best I can. And sometimes you just deal with those like really small, very thin puzzle mats, and then you hit those and it still feels like the ground anyway. But and a lot of those people, but a lot of people who want to do backyard training, they're used to, we were used to training in gymnasiums, no mats. I'm hitting a gym floor, and that's somewhat of the differences. And then in Japan, these guys are like doing it on hardwood floors, man. So it depends on what you're thinking for dojo too. I'm going off of dojo as far as what I think is in the U.S., not like other areas, because dojos in Japan, Korea, which that's a dojang, but anyways, that's what I'm talking about. But I'm talking about schools within those areas. Their training regimens are different than our Western society. I'm talking about the Western society dojo of what I'm thinking as far as dojo, and that means in the United States. Okay, so the lack of safety equipment for backyard and safety equipment for the dojo. Do you want to be safer, or do you want to just learn? And do you want to learn how to take a fall on the ground where if you're gonna fall, that's where you're gonna fall when you're in a street fight, when you're in a survival situation, combat situation, battlefield situation. You are going to hit the ground, not the grass or not a mat, nothing nice and cushy. So it's also depending on how you want to train. Backyard training, most backyard training, there is no certificates. You're not getting trained to rank up and do this. You're doing it because you want to train. It's always going to go right back to that one. You want to train. So you don't care if you get certified. You don't care about the belts. You don't care about the trophies. You don't care about none of that crap. All you care about is, I want to learn how to effectively be able to defend myself, survive a situation, or protect my family, or do my job properly, depending on what you're going for. And then there's belts and certificates and trophies and ribbons and medals and stuff for dojos. A lot of times, because you got to go into competitions, and the reason why you do tournaments is to promote your school. And if your school does really well, and it's a local tournament, you're probably going to get a nice little influx for a little bit. So it's always about marketing when it comes to dojos. I'm talking about U.S. for real. And it might be that way other places. I know for the U.S., it is big time. It's about promoting and marketing and marketing. And I mean, it really is. It's such a commercial thing. It actually makes me a little sick. It makes me throw up in my mouth a little bit. So backyard training, not exactly the most respected thing. A lot of people. And this depends on, and there's also, and I'm saying that as an in general thing, not amongst people who are very, I'm a martial artist type of guy. Like I said, who've trained in very hard before, who've trained on hitting hard floors and surfaces and understand the merit of doing garage and backyard training. It's not the most sought upon or really looked at very highly amongst a lot of circles. And it's because people go, oh, they just train in their backyard. They just do garage training. I hate to say it, guys, but that's where Bruce Lee did a lot of his training. Yeah, he went to schools, but the majority of his training was his own personal regimen that he did in his backyard with other people. Garage training, some of his top instructors, some of the baddest dudes around, they started in a garage, and some of them are still in garages. They don't want to go commercial. They refuse to. Some of the best Kali masters are impoverished in the Philippines, but they're some of the most dangerous and deadly individuals out there. So, but they're not really looked at. People don't see them, so they don't look at them like, ooh. It's all about what people see, man. We're very visual, it's a pretty package. It's very, ooh, when it comes to certain things. And dojo training is just more well known. If it has a big moniker on it and it says karate or taekwondo or something, people will go there. And they feel okay about it. And they're okay about dropping $100, $200, sometimes $500 for training. Okay, good for you. But it's all what you're looking for. What are you doing? Me, I'm a backyard garage type guy, because a lot of the training I got was in gymnasiums, and I did train in a school, which again that came out, but that was in the 80s, and these guys it was a carpet. It wasn't matted. It was a carpet floor, and we hit that thing. That's when we do takedowns, and we sparred without gear. I mean, that was the kind of freestyle school that I was in, and then we also had that my Aikido school was in a gymnasium. We had one set of mats, and that's what we rolled on in the beginning. Once everyone started getting higher up in levels, once you started getting more advanced, those were no longer there, and you better start hitting the ground. So you just did it on the ground. So, I mean, that was just how it was. And our Shotokan, again, bare knuckled, or you just had those little small, wraps around your hands, those little pads that you put on your hands, your little knuckle ones. And, and that's what you hit with. And we went bang in the face. You'd come home, your gi was, pink, so that's how it went. I mean, that's my kind of training. But then after my schools closed down, it was hard for anybody to get open. So there was a lot of people teaching out of their backyard, out of their garages and stuff like that, just for extra money. And some of these guys were dads of friends of mine, or their brothers of friends of mine. So we just go and we train. And so I got a lot of backyard, a lot of garage type training, and it was like a lot of private training and stuff like that from correction officers and police officers and guys that were veterans and stuff like that, ex special forces and things like that had actually seen battlefield stuff, and they would teach you that. So I became better because of the experience I had in a more private setting like a garage or backyard training. I got better defending myself and actually knowing what it is to be in a fight that way. That's where the lack of comfort comes in for backyard training, and it's a very comfortable setting though for a dojo. And I mean comfort not in just the equipment, and I mean that as comfort as a person buying. I started training my son personally when he was about 4. And he would sit still, he'd do the stances, he'd do the little blocks, and he learned how to do a lot of things at a very young age. But when he was 6, I put him in a Kempo school, and it was before I ended up really just not liking how this guy taught was not for a 6-year-old, in my opinion. And I was refusing to pay the things that they wanted me to pay because they needed the money and I didn't have it, so it ended up going south. So he would come in, but he was 6 years old, and what seemed natural to him after 2 years of training with me, what seemed natural to him was unnatural to these other kids, because he would be like, because he got past, in my opinion, I taught him for a year the whole horse stance and the blocks and the reverse punches and stuff like that, and then we moved on to keeping your hands up, moving, bobbing, and weaving, which seemed to come more natural, and it was even helped him even learn certain mechanics to get certain things going. So by the time he was 6, he was already very flexible, very strong, and he would spar these kids, and he would come in and they would be like, they'd do their crazy, I don't know if they knew what they're doing fight, and he'd go up against one of their little black belts, and he was just a white belt, and he ended up cleaning this kid. And it was like, because he was like, I'm used to training with older kids, and my hardest hit was not like enough to lay them out, but this kid came in and he bloop, and and he's used his training that I've taught him over the years continually. I still teach him stuff. He's used it in real street fights against multiple attackers, older and bigger than him. So he knows that he's got the stuff to be able to do this, and he just would prefer full contact rather than tag you're it type sparring. He doesn't care for that, but he's too young. He's getting to the point now he might be old enough to start looking towards that. But at the same time, his interests have changed. But he wasn't comfortable. I had these small mats, and he would land on those mats and roll off of it real quick. Man, when he got on the matted floors, it was like he would like jump on those and like dive on them, and he was like ha ha ha, and he was so used to gymnasium floors and basement floors and stuff like that with very little padding, and he was just like, I don't care. For me, the comfortable setting is parents are sitting there reading magazines while their kids are sitting there getting instruction, and sometimes this instruction was so poor. If you were not a martial artist, though, you wouldn't know. Me, I'm a martial artist. I know how to teach kids and I know how to train them. And I was watching and I was thinking, in my mom, she had taken me to school after school, and she knew from how I trained and how I taught and how, and things like that. And she also knew how my teachers taught me and stuff like that. And one day she was watching this and she looked at me and she goes, I don't like the way he is instructing. He is horrible. I know what instructors look like. I've been around them since you were 4. He's horrible. So she even knew the difference because she'd been around it because of me. So comfortable doesn't necessarily mean better. It just means a comfortable setting. You can have coffee and juice while you're waiting on your kids and read a magazine and have this nice comfy chair and now look at this wonderful, and it makes you feel good about yourself and what your kids are in and doing. Take a kid to a garage or a warehouse or something like that, you don't feel as good anymore. You're kind of like, really? But hey, you do if you looked at old school Kaji Kembo schools, they were some of the most dangerous individuals. I mean, we're talking old school, man. We're not talking these new commercialized Kempo schools and things like that. I'm talking about these old school Kaji Kembo schools in Hawaii when it was for the street. These guys were considered the most dangerous individuals there. And it's because they had to deal with dangerous streets. They taught a lot in really bad areas. That's because that's what they had available. So I think to me, it's all a matter of what are you looking for? Are you looking to defend yourself or feel good? Well, if you're looking to actually learn how to actually fight and actually defend yourself, maybe you should do a couple backyard sessions and see, and you'll probably end up saying this, especially if you're a martial artist that have been in a dojo your whole life, you're going to end up saying these words. You've taught me more in an hour than I've learned in an entire year being at my school. I can guarantee it. I got that a lot. It's in the backyard training. There we go. It's reality friendly, but it's not family friendly. Dojos are very family friendly. They're very, like I said, very comfortable. You're very, and it's very family friendly, where the other one's more reality friendly, more ready to fight type friendly, if you would say. It would really, it hones you and pushes you a little more when you're in those kind of environments. So, but now I want your guys' views too. I want you guys to be putting down on, commenting on my Facebook and on this video, and commenting a lot, and saying what your thoughts are on backyard training and dojo training. I've done both, and I've learned more in my dojo training, in my backyard training. But I had a lot of good training come out of my dojo training, and it was because of that dojo training, my backyard training excelled even more. And the thing is I didn't have really crappy dojos though. I had schools that, again, they would be considered not able to open a school in some places here in the U.S. now because of the fact that they had the lack of things that they had. And they would never let kids fight bare knuckle now. They won't even let adults fight bare knuckle now without it being illegal. So it's, what level are you at? My training was that. That was my training, and I unfortunately go back to that a lot. And even though those were dojos, they were actual schools, they were still very hard compared to the schools now. Some of these schools now, they're so soft. They're as soft as baby crap, and they really are not out there to teach you how to be hardened. And unfortunately, that's where in my opinion, they're getting away from being martial in their martial arts. So that's a whole nother subject. Now I got another topic, and I don't think it was like he set it for a topic, but it was kind of a discussion we had of MMA roots in underground fighting. It was like, I don't know if I really believe it was underground, MMA really got their roots in underground fighting. Let me explain something. MMA would be nowhere if it was not for underground fighting. No holds barred competitions have always existed for martial arts. It was to test the soldiers, it was to push their limits, and it was to see who was good. And they really wanted to test it. We're talking about every culture's had a kind of a competition like that. Over in Greece, basically if you check it out, in Egypt, all over the world, and especially in the Far East, you're going to see all sorts of documentation about these no-holds-barred type of competitions. And if it was not for, then so MMA would have to come from those. The only difference is there's a lot more rules in MMA than there has ever been in a martial arts kind of competition when it comes into trying to be no holds barred in that sense. Let me examples: Kumite, Sansu, and Bandasho. They are all the exact same thing. Genghis Khan held this. Okay, this is where the Kumite came from, the one that Frank Dukes fought in. And you guys can slander me that if you want to, but there's a fight footage out there now, and you're going to troll it, and I know it. But at the same time, it was used to call Sansu. Same thing Ho Ying-ja did. Yeah, you remember Fearless that Jet Li did about, Ho Ying-ja? That guy right there, he was in what was called Sansu. That was the Kumite. The Tanaka on Fearless was the same guy that they were portraying for. That was the same one that, yes, trained Frank Dukes. And yes, it was the guy that was the one that they were portraying. And no, he was not that kind and nice. He was not that sweet and nice and all that stuff. But that was the Chinese version of how they write it up, of how it happened. Okay? Just so you know, I doubt it happened that way because of the fact that Tanaka was not that friendly of a man. He more likely was not like merciful, stop my punch. He would have killed the guy. And to say that it was because he was poisoned, I think that's just far-fetched. And people are just trying to say, well, that's the only way he could have been beaten. And he was probably really a really awesome fighter, really, BA type of fighter. But I'm not going to buy into he was just poisoned and that's the only reason why he won. So I'm not going to do it. So, but Bandasho came from Mongolia, and that was the thing that Genghis Khan taught, or he had his guys do, to basically see who's the toughest guy. These guys would get together and they would rumble it out, and so it kind of went down from there. It just kind of grew. So, but the thing is, like I said, you can look all over these areas, and you can see that they've had competitions like that. Some sort of wrestling competition, some sort of no-holds-barred, dirty, gritty fighting type of competition. The only reason why this one has got such a big name now is because of what they've done with it, because of the great marketing they've done with it, how they've introduced it, things like that. Gracie Dojo fights were no-holds-barred underground fights, okay? They were holding those fights for years. Then they kind of took the idea from Bloodsport. They've seen Bloodsport, and they said, hey, wouldn't it be great to do something like that? Do this bracketed fighting with all these different styles. Why don't we get that out there and really showcase Gracie Jiu-Jitsu? That's what they did. They brought out UFC, Ultimate Fighting Challenge. Not Championship, Challenge at the time. And now it's this big thing. Then they sold it to Dana White in 2000, Ultimate Fighting Championship in 2000, and now it's become this huge thing. And I think it grew because so many martial artists were watching UFC at that time, the ones that were basically legal in so many states that they hardly had any venues to be able to get to, and they weren't making enough money to really, make it that popular. I just remember watching them from '93, and I was just like, and going up, and it was like, whoa. And then I lost interest towards the time that everybody started. It just started becoming, to me, it started looking ridiculous, almost to what it is now. And then I'm always in and out. I'm like, yeah, it's good. Yeah, I don't care. No holds barred fighting was still going on before UFC. Before 1993, before they had that going on, I had a school that these guys were brandishing those bad boy logos that they have all over with UFC now, the bad boy eyes. They were brandishing those way beforehand, and it was because they were going to competitions like this. They would go to those competitions, they'd come back with all sorts of this crazy stuff. And these guys were really good fighters, so man, you come in and you deal with you get some good knowledge out of this, because they would come back, even if they got beat with it, they would say, hey man, we saw some great stuff. And we talked to those guys, and this is what we're bringing back. And that's what those competitions were meant for. Because they didn't have the internet. They didn't have all that stuff, you know what I mean? So no one could see all that. So now it's so widespread, and people are kind of wondering why didn't they just do this? And it's like, because they didn't have YouTube, they didn't have the internet, they didn't have all that stuff. People had to fly areas, they had to get together somehow, they had to find a way to get around each other to do this stuff. And then, of course, there's speculation and rumors about all this stuff. And I know people are going to say, no, that did not happen, blah, blah, blah. Whatever, dude. I'm not coming out here with just BS stuff. I'm not coming out here and just saying, oh, no, that's my speculation and rumor. This is stuff that actually happened, okay? This is stuff that really goes on. And people are going to say, I don't know anything. I don't care what they think. I know what I know, and it's plain and simple. I can prove what I know. It's been proven what I'm telling you. All right? So yes, mixed martial arts has underground fighting type roots, plain and simple. Where else would these ideas come from? They just took it more on a boxing type mentality when they started organizing it and getting weight classes and this, that, and the other. They just kind of went in more traditional competition, and I think that's good. I don't think that's a bad thing. You know what I mean? So they made it real popular, but now people have got dogmatic with it. It's no longer about what that was made for. Is it this system versus system? And people are all caught up in it when it's never been about that. Is this guy good enough with what he knows to beat this guy with what he knows in that moment? Doesn't have anything to do with the system. Are they good enough with what they know? Or do they have weak points that they need to get sorted out and fix? That's what it was for. Now it's all about, hey, it's Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Muay Thai, blah, blah, blah. Muay Thai. Half the stuff ain't even Muay Thai. But Muay Thai, it's Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, it's wrestling, it's boxing, it's kickboxing, it's garbage, guys. Just because you can box and kickbox and do all that stuff does not mean that you are on this level that some of these martial artists have gotten to. You would never be able to last with guys at their peak level. Vic Moore would mop the floor with a lot of these guys. I mean, even Chuck Norris in his day, dude. You guys, honestly, there's a reason why he's tough. Okay? People know him as a tough guy because he was tough. He was awesome. Mike Stone, Joe Louis. Some of these guys were some of the toughest martial artists. And Joe Louis brought out kickboxing, which was called full contact karate for a long time, and then they turned it into kickboxing. And Vic Moore helped them with that. But it's not just Muay Thai, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Everybody wants to hype that up. When Muay Thai, half the Muay Thai that's out there right now is garbage. It's not even real Muay Thai. Muay Thai guys will tell you, that ain't Muay Thai. It's that simple. And then there's people out there that just hype Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I've already talked about my opinion. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu has its place, but it's still Jiu-Jitsu. And old school Jiu-Jitsu has everything Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu has in it. Why? Because those are the ones who taught the Gracies Jiu-Jitsu. Bam! Period. Don't ever compare it. It's hardly to be comparable anymore. You guys just... But quit thinking that just because it's on the TV and that's the popular term to use, that's the only way to go. One thing I'm getting tired of is the ignorance of this country when it comes to this. And not only the ignorance, it's the ignorance that's continually getting spread by gym owners, by people who are basically, all they are MMA guys. And I understand that you guys think that this is the only way to go. It is not. That's plain and simple truth. It is not. I am not knocking the training. I am not knocking the health, the conditioning, or anything of those guys, or their ability. I'm knocking the fact that they don't have enough knowledge in the other arts to say anything about them, other than, I don't really know enough, this is what I train in. That's all they should say, but that's not what they say. So, are the no holds barred things? Some of these guys wouldn't last in a no holds barred fight with a guy that has had numerous no holds barred fights, and he says he's a karate guy, and he is straight up karate. And they say, well, I think I would blow through him, and then they realize no holds barred means I grab you by your throat and I punch you in your face, and when I drill you in your nose, and then I continue to hit you as I'm choking you at the same time, and then I sweep you down and I'm still holding you and pounding your face. Yes, it sounds like MMA, but it is not MMA. It has a whole nother aspect and a whole lot of different psychologies going on with the person receiving violence and the person doing the violence. So you have to break those down. So I don't like getting into this so much because of the fact that I am very passionate. I believe that MMA is a great sport, but I do not think it's the only way on the highway. I do not believe that those are the arts that you should know to survive in the street. I believe if you start saying, well, Taekwondo, well, it's this, that, and the other, then go to a good Taekwondo school that's not teaching you watered down competition, BS, I'm tapping you with my foot in my hand type of contact. Go to a good school. Okay? That's plain and simple. Go to one that is talking about the self-defense part of it and not just giving you some crappy junk. So it falls not on, it doesn't fall on it falls on the fact that you guys aren't researching. You guys you're spreading ignorance through this, and that's period. That's the plain and simple truth. You're spreading ignorance by being ignorant about something. And ignorant doesn't mean stupid, doesn't mean dumb, it doesn't mean that, it means uneducated in that specific area. And some of these guys are so young, it's like you guys don't have enough life to honestly point me in a way that I should go. And yes, I know times are different and the youth have different problems. But you know what? Bad times in the 80s is still bad times now. There were less guns. We had to, guess what? We had to man up and deal with the hands more and deal with our with chains, knives, bats, and all that stuff. Way more in the, the guys in the 70s and stuff, they had to deal with that in the 80s and 90s. We had to deal with knives more. We still had to deal with all that stuff. Guns are starting to become a bigger thing in the 90s and the 2000s. So yeah, we started seeing that more and that more. But now it's almost like it's just battlefield combatives. And I don't give a crap what you know. Unless you're a combatant, unless you're a battlefield-tested soldier, you can't fight that. And even those guys, all they can do is return fire. You're not going to do any type of MMA, any type of and it doesn't matter what style you do, you can't do anything with it if you're getting shot at. That's just plain and simple truth. So if you want to start getting into those kind of semantics about who's got it worse, let's talk about the people who actually have had to use hand-to-hand combat in real-life situations, not bullying in the schoolyard, not some guy was drunk at the bar. I'm talking about you had to actually fight. Okay? So you could go home. Not to prove how tough you were. So there is a difference in this type of society. Okay, there's a type of difference when it comes to MMA and actually knowing what you're doing. I think they know what they're doing in the ring. Just because you know what you're doing in the ring don't mean nothing to me on the street. So anyways, that's my rant to go along with all this stuff. But at the same time, that's just a part of all this, okay? I want to hear you guys' comments and threads and continue to share and put this out there. Participate as much as possible, man. I know these are long at times, but I need you guys to participate. I need your help to continue this going, okay? And the reason why is because I want to talk about more stuff in truth, in honesty. I had a conversation with a friend of mine who wanted to talk about Kempo, and like I said, I'd like to get a face-to-face recording with Kyle Stockton and just sit down and talk to him about American Ninjutsu and stuff like that, and maybe even Robert Bussey would be fantastic. So, I mean, it'd be great. It'd be great to do that, and I'd like to, if I ever have a chance to, if I ever see Frank again, hopefully sometime here soon in the future, hopefully I can sit down and do a talk with him and talk to him just about the state of martial arts and not so much about his story, okay? His story's out there, guys. Just go and look for it. But look for the truth of it, okay? But be out there but talk about the actual state of martial arts. In my opinion, it's going downhill. Like plain and simple truth. So that's my opinion of the plain and simple truth, anyway. In my opinion. So, but comment and subscribe and like and just do whatever you got to do to continue to participate in these conversations, guys. I love the topics you guys are giving me, so I appreciate it. So keep it up. All right, thanks a lot.